Hello ladies and gentlemen, in this video we'll learn how to send push notifications to a React Native app using Firebase and Expo. As you can see on the screen here, I've got my application up and running, and an important thing to note is you cannot do this using the simulator. You have to use your actual device, otherwise it won't work. The code that I'm starting off with is actually code that I've written in a previous video, which is titled Change User Password by Reauthenticating. So if you'd like, you can follow along with that video, or you can download the code at my GitHub page, or you can follow along with a separate video I made titled Firebase Authentication Starter Tutorial. Either one of those will work for this video. And I will try to figure out how to add a link to those videos on the screen, but if not, you can find them by searching through my video history. For reference, we can use the Expo website. They've got a nice page called Push Notifications, which gives you all the information you'll need. It also has some sample code here, but we're going to write the code from scratch in this video. And I've also got my Firebase database open right here. It just has a person node from a previous video, but you don't need to worry about that because we won't be using that in this video. So back over to the code. Okay, the first step for sending push notifications is to ask the user for permission to send push notifications. And if we're given permission, we're going to get a unique token for that user's device, and we're going to save that token in our Firebase database. That way in the future, when we're ready to send a notification, we'll have access to that token, which is required for sending the push notification. So in order to do that, we need to import a few modules from the Expo library. So we're going to import permissions and notifications from Expo. And I also want to point out that we've already imported the Firebase library, which we're going to need as well. Now we're going to create a function called register for push notifications, and we'll make this an async function. And the first thing we want to do in this function is check if permissions had already been granted, because they may have been granted from a previous time the user has used our app. So I'll add a comment here that says check for existing permissions. And we can check by creating a constant called status. And we will await the Expo function called permissions.getAsync. And we'll supply the type of permission that we want to get, which is permissions.notifications. And we will assign that result to a new variable called final status. Okay. Now what we're going to do is check the state of the existing permissions. And if we haven't been given permission already, then we're going to ask the user for permission. So I'll say, if no existing permission, ask user for permission. And the way we can check is we say if status does not equal granted, and that means that we didn't previously have permission. And then we'll assign status equal to await permissions.ask async. And again, give the permissions.notifications constant. And once again, we're going to assign that to our final status. And now at this point in the code, we've either received the previous permissions or asked the user for them. And if we still don't have permissions at this point, then that means the user has not allowed us to send push notifications. So we just need to exit the function. So we'll create a comment that says, if no permission, exit the function. Now we'll check final status, and we'll say if final status does not equal granted, then we're just going to return from the function. Now at this point, we're ready to get the token for the user's device. So I'm going to create a comment that says get push notification token. And we'll create a variable called token. And now we will use the notifications library from Expo. So we can call notifications.getExpo push token async. And just to make sure everything's working so far, let's print the token out to the screen. So I'm going to do a console.log token. And we're not actually calling this function anywhere, so I'm going to add the lifecycle method component did mount. And inside of that, we're going to call this .register for push notifications. So as soon as this screen is mounted, it's going to ask for push notifications. And you can put this in your startup screen if you want. You could do it whenever the user first logs in. You can put this wherever you'd like, but I've only got one screen, so that's where I'm putting it now. So I'm going to save and reload. And while that's loading, another thing I wanted to point out is that at least for the iPhone, it won't ask you for permissions more than once. So you can call this all you want, but it won't actually ask you over and over again. And so that's why we're not actually seeing on my screen the prompt for permissions, because I did it already before this video was recorded and I clicked yes, and so it's not showing us again. But if I come over to the console, as you can see, we now have this token, and this is unique for my device. And so we'll want to save this in the Firebase database, so that way I can send that user a push notification in the future. So back in the code, now we've got our token. The next thing we want to do is get the user ID from Firebase, so that way we can link the UID with that token. So I'm going to create a comment that says add token to Firebase. And first we're going to create a variable called UID, which is the unique ID for the logged in user, and we can get that by calling firebase.auth.current_user.uid. And then what I want to do in my Firebase database is I want to have a node called users, and then a subnode which has every user's UID, and then below that the Expo push notification token that we just received. So that's pretty simple to do using the Firebase library. So we'll call firebase.database.ref, and we're going to get the user's reference, .child, and we're going to go into the users and create one called UID. And then we'll say .update and give the object that we want to update. So here we'll call this Expo push token, and we'll assign it the value of token. So now I'm going to save and reload, and we can jump over here and we should see the token get added as soon as everything's loaded in just a second. And there we have it. So since the users node didn't exist, it created it. That's my user ID for the user that I'm currently logged in as. And here's the push token that we got by using the get expo push token async function. Now that we've got the push notification token, we're ready to send a push notification to the user. So I'm going to come back to the Expo documentation on the push notifications page, and they actually have a push notification tool right here, which we're going to use. Now in this video, we'll use the tool, but in your actual workflows, you'll want to set up a system for sending push notifications out, and we'll explore that in a future video. If I come over here to the tool, it asks us for our push notification token. So I'm going to go over to my Firebase database where we saved it, and I'm going to copy and paste that token right there. And it asks us for a message title, a message body. We can decide whether we'd like to play a sound, and you can even send your own custom data if you'd like, which can come in handy. The badge count is the number that appears on your app's icon when the notification is received, so you can put any kind of number that you'd like. But let's just put a title, so we'll say title and body. And before I click send a notification, I'm going to come over here and point out that you actually need to have the app not in the foreground in order to see the notification. There are ways to register for notifications while the app is currently running, but for this video, I'm going to just click my home button and go over to the home screen. So now this is not in the foreground, and then I'm going to come over here and click send a notification. And as you can see on my phone here, I've got the notification from Expo with the title and body that we sent. And I was a little bit too slow clicking on it, so let me send a new one. So I click send notification, and I'll click on it this time, and it will launch our application. That's all you need to do to send push notifications using Firebase and Expo in your React Native application. And like I said, in a follow-up video, I'll discuss how we can send those notifications in a way not using the Expo tool, and how we can also listen to notifications even if the app is currently running. So thanks for watching the video.